Imagine a pope waking up one morning and deciding to leave everything behind. No serious illness documented, no precedent for centuries. Just a statement in Latin, read in a hushed voice before a few stunned cardinals. On February 11, 2013, Benedict XVI announced his resignation. The Catholic world was shocked. The media applauded. But something didn't add up. Today, I'll show you the evidence. Documented evidence, evidence from WikiLeaks, evidence implicating the American Secret Services, the international financial system, and a plan called, literally, Catholic Spring. Stay until the end. What you discover will change the way you look at the last 12 years of the Church. On April 17, 2026, LifeSiteNews published a 48-minute interview. John Henry Weston hosted Liz Yore, a Catholic lawyer and analyst, a former UNICEF consultant, known for her investigations into global power and the Church. The video's title is unmistakable: The Globalist Plot to Eliminate Benedict, Swift, NSA Spying, and American Intelligence Exposed. In just a few hours, it has garnered over 17,800 views and 1,650 likes. Yore brings real documents to the table, not theories, documents. The WikiLeaks files explicitly demonstrate the US State Department's interest in undermining the leadership of Benedict XVI. This isn't an interpretation, it's written. The SWIFT system, the International Interbank Network, is described as an instrument of financial pressure on the Vatican. The Holy See's internal communications were intercepted by the US National Security Agency. All this while, Benedict resisted on three fronts: mass migration, the normalization of relations with Communist China, and the secularizing agenda that was overwhelming Western institutions. The project's name, Catholic Spring, is perhaps its most chilling detail. A Catholic Spring, modeled after the externally supported Arab revolutions, designed to reshape the Church from within. Not with weapons, but with banks, wiretaps, and diplomatic pressure. Stop for a moment. What are you hearing? You're hearing that foreign powers, not believers, not theologians, not cardinals, would use intelligence and financial tools to remove a pope who was wrong to defend Catholic doctrine and oppose the globalist agenda. Benedict XVI was no ordinary pope. He was Joseph Ratzinger, the most perceptive theologian of the 20th century, prefect of the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith for 23 years, guardian of tradition in an age of crumbling. He was the man who wrote An Introduction to Christianity, The Salt of the Earth, and Jesus of Nazareth. Not a reactionary conservative, a master. And he had done concrete things that were damaging to the system. In 2006, in Regensburg, he had given a speech on reason, faith, and violence that had shaken half the world's diplomacy. In 2007, he had liberated the Latin Mass with Summorum Pontificum, giving new respite to millions of traditionalist faithful. In 2012, he had rejected pressure for a rapid normalization of relations with China, which would have handed the Church over to Beijing's influence. These weren't petty skirmishes. They were positions that touched on enormous interests: economic, geopolitical, ideological, and Benedict, with his quiet voice and his sharp pen, was thwarting them. The WikiLeaks documents Liz Yore cites aren't new. They've been circulating in research circles for years. But no one had systematically assembled them, linking SWIFT, the NSA, the State Department, and the Catholic Spring into a coherent picture. This is what LifeSiteNews has done with this video. What exactly does WikiLeaks say? American diplomatic cables shows State Department officials discussing how to reshape the Catholic leadership, how to soften Vatican positions on sensitive issues, how to foster the emergence of a hierarchy more open to dialogue. The language is diplomatic, but the meaning is crystal clear. On the financial front, in the period preceding the resignation, the Vatican was subjected to a series of pressures through the SWIFT system. International financial institutions interrupted or complicated transfers to the Holy See. This wasn't a technical coincidence. It was leverage. The signal was clear: adapt or suffocate. And then there's surveillance. The NSA, the US National Security Agency, had already demonstrated during the Snowden years that it was intercepting communications from allied world leaders. Why should the Vatican be an exception? Your maintains, with documents in hand, that Vatican communications were under scrutiny, that Benedict knew he was being listened to, and that this burden, this violation, was part of the climate in which the decision to leave matured. Now, does this evidence prove with absolute certainty that Benedict was coerced? No, we cannot say with absolute certainty, and it would be dishonest to do so. But the evidence demonstrates something equally important. There was a structured, documented, and active interest on the part of foreign powers in removing Benedict XVI. There was a plan, there were tools, and there was the will to use them. This is the difference between a conspiracy theory and a documented investigation. A conspiracy theory has no evidence. This one does. And so the question arises that every Catholic should ask: if the secular power succeeded, or at least attempted by all means, in removing the Pope who defended tradition, what does this tell us about the current situation? What does this tell us about Leo XIV, who today continues, and in some cases accelerates, the openings that Benedict had curbed? We're not saying that Leo XIV is a State Department puppet. That would be an unworthy simplification. We're saying something more subtle and disturbing, that the secular power has learned that the Church can be shaped from the outside, that levers exist, that levers work, and that, as Benedict himself taught, the Church runs the risk of being colonized by ideologies that come not from faith but from politics. Benedict XVI wrote it clearly in 2012 in a letter to the German bishops. The true enemy of the faith is not the external persecutor, but the internal colonization of the Christian soul by the spirit of the world. Prophetic words, words that sound even more weighty today, in light of what LifeSiteNews has brought to light. Here's the point I want you to take away. Benedict XVI wasn't just a pope who prayed, he was a bulwark, a real doctrinal, intellectual, and spiritual obstacle against the decline. And someone, documented, not imagined, worked to demolish him. His voice did not die with his resignation. It remains in his writings, in his encyclicals, in the Summorum Pontificum, which still protects, at least formally, the Latin Mass. It remains in us if we choose to carry it forward. Watch the LifeSiteNews video. Read the documents. Don't take my word for it. See for yourself. And then ask yourself, what kind of church do we want? A church that bows to banks and wiretaps, or a church that tells the truth even when it hurts? What do you think? If you liked the video, comment Amen. God bless you.